Sonic the frickin' Hedgehog, where have you gone? Were you so exceedingly fast that you left your sanity far behind you? It's been practically 20 years, Ogilvy Maurice Hedgehog. The beauty that you bestowed upon us in those early 1990s was one that I so eagerly want to recoup. Return to us, Sonic, please. Please, return to—
Yo, bro, we need your help!
Epona?
No, my name's Brian.
Okay, Barry, well, right now I'm playing a game, so maybe if you could just—
Dude, you gotta save the Bahamas!
Byron, what are you talking about?
Everyone suddenly started believing Shadow the Hedgehog is the best Sonic game ever made!
No.
This can't be. Oh, but it is! And every time somebody believes, they turn into a horse! Like me.
Blake, we've got to stop this. We can't let American Samoa—
Bahamas.
We can't let the Obamas turn into a bunch of furries.
No! You said the word!
Bacon, what's happening?
You spoke the forbidden word, and every time it's spoken, every one of us within 3 miles of the spoken word implode into the dark abyss of nothing!
What do I do to stop this, Barbosa?
You gotta remind everyone what the true Sonic games are again! Show them your
true power.
What is happening?
Chaos control!
Well, looks like I've got some work to do.
Time for you to play the best Sonic game and show everyone what life is truly all about.
Well, that's the problem, Mac. I don't know which one is the best. It's Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckle. I don't know which one to choose.
It's time to choose, Garrett. It's time to become a man and make your own decisions.
Play me and figure it out, you know.
Okay, do all my video game consoles talk?
Yes.
So this is how we're going about this. I'm gonna state the pros and cons I found in all 3 of these games, and whichever game has the least cons wins. Anyway, here we go. Before getting into the first game, a little history lesson might be useful to show where the series began. You thought you were done with school for the moment, huh? Here, I'll make this interesting. It was the ancient times of 1983, BSMB. The industry had crashed thanks to a consistent lineup of deplorable titles, one which held the crown. The video game world needed a savior, and that's when the one and only Nintendo with their genius Shigeru Miyamoto gallantly marched in with their Super Mario Bros. On the NES and changed gaming forever. Suddenly we went from this to this, an entire world which at the time was graphically gorgeous, where the character had an unparalleled amount of freedom with a fantastic controller that trumped all previous ones. This game not only changed gaming forever, it saved it. Naturally, because of this masterpiece and its success, along with many other revolutionary titles, Nintendo dominated more than 90% of the market for a solid 5 years. Nintendo seemed invincible and no one stood a chance. So who was gonna put up the fight? Who was gonna say, hey, Nintendo, I kinda wanna beat you? That's right, the one and only legendary Sega. In ASMB 1989, Sega released the Genesis, a system leagues ahead of the NES, and yet Nintendo was still kicking the butt. In fact, 2 years later in ASMB 1991, Nintendo made a comeback with their technically superior console, the SNES. Sega was gonna need some good marketing skills and a good game to go up against Nintendo and their seemingly unstoppable Mario. Enter Sonic the Hedgehog, and boy did he mean business. This game was revolutionary. Suddenly everything went from a world built with blocks and flat visuals to a world that was smooth and vibrant and popped out, and last but not least, it was fast. It was cool. Sonic was the new kid on the block and he wasn't leaving anytime soon. But is this game good?
Garrett, unless all your viewers live under a literal rock, then they're probably aware that the original Sonic games are considered the greatest Sonic.
Garrett, why do you underestimate the power of my beauty?
Wow, I was only trying to write a decent script.
Wow, you're only Garrett Williamson and don't give 2 craps about 3 words in your script.
Wow, this entire script definitely doesn't mainly consist of sarcasm at all.
Haha, did you get the ironic joke? Haha, that's so funny. Haha.
The overall gameplay is great. Everything has a purpose. For example, the game requires Sonic's speed. Sonic isn't just simply fast, the game actually requires it of him in order for him to progress. Sonic can only run through those loops if he has enough momentum to do so. Sonic will only be able to get up this steep hill if he has enough momentum to do so. This is good design. And rings are more than just lifesavers. They're useful to get continues, one-ups, and unlock bonus stages as well. I'm sure some of you are going,
but Garrett, don't things in games have to have a purpose in order for anything to even—
You would not believe how many games have objects that feel completely pointless. I get it, V. I know. Shut up. Especially with Green Hill Zone, it was designed for the exploring type who take their time checking out the cool secrets in this stage, just as much as it could be for the don't give one single turd type that just want to blow up everything in their path. Yeah, that That was me. Gameplay-wise with the stage order, there's a good contrast between each stage. Green Hill's fast, Marble slows it down, Spring Hill kind of is a mix, Labyrinth... You know what, we'll get to that in a second. Something that I've always loved about Genesis Sonic that was of course started here is how the background helps distinguish the lower half of the stage from the upper half. It really made the world seem alive and, in a sense, real.
Wow, it's so real. It looks so freaking real.
If nowhere else, this game's visuals kicked Mario's butt. Even when Super Mario World released in the same year for the SNES, it did not match this game. This game took most advantage of its color, took advantage of its technology with concepts like having a lower and upper half of the stage and everything having smoother and more natural surfaces as opposed to the more blocky, flat world. A very vibrant and lively game. It's beautiful.
Something that has almost always been a strength of Sonic's through the ups and downs of his actual games is the music, and the original game is no exception.
At this point, it's extremely iconic and still very enjoyable. All the music fits fairly well. We go from the happy and colorful sounding Green Hill music to the more dark and mysterious Marble Zone to the slightly jazzy feel of Spring Yard.
Duke Ellington just has to be spinning in his grave right now.
Mainly, the stages are the issues here. Now, overall, there's nothing wrong with the stages as a whole, except for maybe one. However, there are definitely some things about them that don't work perfectly. Level design-wise, Marble Zone might slow things down a bit too much. Additionally, the stage's theme seemed kind of strange. We go from a tropical area to ruins and mountains, and then a casino-like area in the outskirts of a city, and then I don't even know. And speaking of Labyrinth... This stage is an atrocity. Firstly, we hadn't really come across anything that just seemed like a way to crap on the player until these guys. And just to add to that annoyance, they decided to dump in a ton of water. The mechanics for Sonic Underwater are fairly accurate as things are floatier and slower. But this only goes against Sonic as timing and good platforming get thrown to the birds. You get it? Like the flickies or the birds and you throw it to screw it. Oh, but we're not done yet. Sonic can run out of breath. And just to add to that terror, they added in music to count down Sonic's 10 seconds before he drowns in front of your face. Screw horror games. This is worse. This is bad. And last but certainly not least, the last act requires that you quickly platform up to the top of the stage while the water rises. Now this would be a fine challenge, except they added spears that poke in and out. And this right here has caused me the entire game numerous times and has put me through so much pressure. In fact, I actually just beat this abomination for the first time while studying these 3 games for this episode, and I was genuinely amazed. I would then go to actually beat the entire game that night for the first time, and I was pretty excited.
Oh my god! Woo! I don't care about your Chaos Emeralds, I just beat your game!
I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you would know. After Labyrinth comes Starlight Zone, which honestly feels a bit bland. Part of me wonders if they were handing us an apple pie after shoving horse crap in our face beforehand, but honestly, that apple pie was fairly boring. Or maybe it felt boring after how insanely frustrated I had gotten moments beforehand. However, I love the song. And this scrap rain is lame. And apparently they were too lazy to make Act 3, so it's literally just a gray recolor of Labyrinth. Wow. Look at that. The Sonic recolor nightmare began in the very first game. Nice going, Sega. Why does it look like that?
Oh, time constraints?
Wow, look at that. Already rushing games at day 1. Nice frickin' going, Sega. Lastly, I don't usually have anything against the bonus stages, but when they get frustrating, they get really frustrating. No, I'm not done yet. I'm not done. Don't throw me through.
You know you love it.
No, don't give me that crap. Sonic is only cool when he's cool.
Mac is going to make a script joke in 3, 2, 1.
The script is working beautifully.
By your monotone voice, I take that as sarcasm.
Aren't we all?
Monotone also applies to Garrett, right?
This line definitely isn't Sonic.
I can't escape this.
Sonic 2 is, believe it or not, the sequel to Sonic 1.
After the first game's success, why not just frolic through your man-made forest consisting of your money-growing game? That's stupid. The game being released nearly a year and a half after its predecessor was a huge commercial success and further helped the Genesis take over the wider margin of the market for a time than its rival.
So they may have made a lot of money, but had they made a good game?
Garrett, we all know.
Gameplay is just as solid in this game as it was in the first one and probably even more. The iconic spin dash was added in this installment, which helped the flow of the game a ton and was fun to use. There are also only 2 acts for each stage, which is good, as the 3rd acts of Sonic 1 always tired me out a little. The one thing that stood out the most to me is the game rewards speed much more than Sonic 1 did. Chemical Plant in this game is a clear testament to this improvement. The feeling of speed is too legit.
To quit.
Hang on, I'm gonna go get my gun. I need to put an end to your miserable life.
There's also quite a few more stages in this game, which I would say is a plus. Lastly, they added 2-player support both for the actual game and competition mode. And racing against each other in competition mode is fun. Once again, all the stages require Sonic speed and probably even in a better manner than the first game did. There isn't much to say here. It's sexy.
And you know it.
Yep. Loading it.
This game was definitely an improvement on Sonic 1. I remember one stage that visually stood out to me when I was younger and still does is Aquatic Mine. The transition between the highest point and the lowest point is really contrasted here very smoothly. There's even some extra artsy additions like branches and leaves in the foreground in front of Sonic, helping give it that ruins and overgrown feel. And Sonic's animations are improved a little, like his accelerating animation, skid animation, and even animations of him losing balance when close to an edge. Heck, there's 2 of them depending on how close you are. I love this one. It kind of makes me chuckle.
But you'd rather flex your...
Not even gonna fire because you were already dead by that generation anyway.
The music was composed by the same guy as Sonic 1, Masato Nakaba, I can't say his name, and it basically sounds the same. However, a lot of the compositions I prefer over Sonic 1's, though Sonic 1 is probably overall more iconic. Okay, so unfortunately there's a lot of cons here. Here, let me just real quick list them all. Metropolis Zone, Metropolis Zone, Metropolis Zone, Metropolis Zone, Metropolis Zone, Metropolis. Holy crap! There is literally not one good thing about this stage other than its music and visuals. And I mean, I like the music and stuff, but that doesn't matter when the stage itself is literally garbage. No, I'm serious. Have you ever seen have you ever seen somebody throw something in the garbage? Yeah. That this is the epitome of that. This is bullcrap. This is bullcrap. And this is the biggest bullcrap. Oh, no, wait, there's more. Instead of this chaos lasting for 2 acts, they added in a 3rd act because screw the players. It's not like the last stage of the game. Just this, wait for the devs to crap all over the players. Like, why would you make an Act 3? Why? Lastly, while the race mode is a great addition in this game, they apparently squashed the dimensions of both screens to fit in the entire angle. Honestly, I'd just rather miss out on some of it because that squash dimension is about as appealing as a squash banana. And if I were really honest, Sonic 2 kind of feels a tad too similar to Sonic 1 for me. However, it does what Sonic 1 did well and even better, so I conclude that Sonic 2 is basically an improved Sonic 1.
I would make a joke here, but I can't think of one.
Blame the script.
Man, I can't wait for the day that you make a new joke.
When you write a better script.
So after Sonic 2 and the release of Sonic CD came Sonic 3, a direct sequel to Sonic 2. The game was released in February of '94, and while it didn't reach the same success as its predecessors, it still sold over 1 million copies and is considered one of the best-selling games on the Genesis. But the game didn't feel complete. It was really short in comparison to Sonic 2, having barely half the amount of stages that its previous title had. But why? The answer was found roughly half a year later when Sonic & Knuckles released. The game was not just the direct sequel to Sonic 3, but its second half. Sonic & Knuckles was a special cartridge. It had lock-on technology which allowed for another game to be locked onto it. If Sonic 3 was locked in, it was literally, I mean, like, when you put one into the other, it's just you had Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the real Sonic 3. This is how the developers meant it to be, but due to cartridge costs and limitations and freaking time constraints, the game had to be split into 2 separate games. But with both games connected, we now have the real Sonic 3.
So now to play it. It's just, you know how they... I'm not going to tell you much about the story just because I'm too lazy, but I will tell you this. Sheer brilliance.
Just watch the very opening scene before the first stage. Okay, this may seem simple, but that's exactly what makes it genius. Without saying one thing or saying one word on the screen, the game managed to present the setting, problem, protagonist, antagonist, and the goal all within 15 seconds. This is storytelling at its finest. Just like the last 2 games, the gameplay in this game is absolutely solid and even more so than the past 2. This was the icing on the cake. Remember when I said the stages require Sonic speed? This game does it the best by a wide margin, as the game is built practically begging me to go at those speeds and hardly ever throws crap at me for doing it. I mean, no 2D Sonic game ever gave me as much of this feeling as this game did.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what I'm looking for in games, man. No, I'm serious. This is really my favorite thing.
One of the better additions to this game that the last two games lacked is a save feature, and I love it. Another great improvement was transitions from Act 1 to Act 2 and from one stage to the next. There was always some explanation for everything and really helped connect everything together. And it's always really cool because the visuals and music change for every second act, which adds really neat and artistic variety. Additionally, this game isn't frustratingly challenging like Sonic 1 and 2 were at points, but the game is definitely not easy either. It gives you a challenge without ever completely enraging you. I can't ever remember a time where it infuriated me, threw the controller, and walked away cursing at Sega.
Because whenever I screw it up, it's always my fault and never by any chance possibly the game.
There are also tons of upgrades and shields that serve different purposes, which both is a fun addition and actually helps the flow of the game a ton. Lastly, competition mode in this game is a huge improvement on Sonic 2. It looks much nicer and clearly built to fit two screens, as they actually made the character sprites smaller to fit their screen without having to squash anything. Just like everything else I've noted thus far, the level design in this game is the icing on the cake of these three games. How many times have I used that icing on the cake? New and different enemies placed in different areas, tons of secrets, cool objects to help Sonic progress that are made for specific levels. It all adds to the action and makes everything so much more fun. And a cool thing about this game is that instead of bonus stages requiring 50 rings, it just puts them in neat little secret areas. This feels a lot more rewarding, especially since exploring is— I'm getting too formal.
This game's level design is freaking sick.
I mean sick, like it's good, like it's good. Like, this is 2015. I'm trying to use all the hip words, okay?
I like art. I like good use of color. This game nails it right in the head.
No, seriously, I would argue this was one of the most gorgeous games of this entire generation. This game took what the others did so well and literally just boosted it to over— not into screw it, that's a terrible line. Look at all these notes. Probably a third of them regard the visual beauty of this game. There's so much depth to everything. The backgrounds are gorgeous and once again do that really cool thing where it's different depending on how high up or how low you are in the stage. The sky color also isn't so dark as it was in the past two games, especially Sonic 1's Green Hill Zone. Let's be honest, that is a really dark blue in comparison to the actual sky color.
Wow, it's really nice out here.
The surface of the water both under it and over it in hydrosity is just— how did they manage this? Nothing actually feels flat. It all feels thick and chunky and real. In addition to this, there's the Sonic sprite redesign, which dramatically changed Sonic's appearance. In the first two games, to be honest, Sonic almost looks too cute for his attitude. In Sonic 3, his appearance perfectly presents his cool attitude. Listen, I'll basically just conclude that the visuals in this game are amazing even now, 21 years later.
And guess what? Genesis only had 512 colors to choose from, and only 64 could pop up on the screen at once. Wait, hold up. 512 colors to choose from, 64 could be used on screen at once. Mac, how many could SNES do?
32,768.
And how many on screen at once?
256.
Yeah, 64 colors, my butt. Super Mario World, eat your heart out.
Your comparisons are invalid. Super Mario World was released earlier on against Sonic 1.
You wanna go?
Holy crap, chill out, that hurts a little.
By a long shot that goes out of the park, slam dunks, and gets a touchdown, Sonic wins.
Let me tell you about a poopy sound chip that was used for this game.
This music is freaking sick. The grit and hardcore sound of the Genesis sound chip makes me prefer it over SNES's sound chip. And this soundtrack shows it at its absolute best. There's just a punchiness and funk to so much of it that really complements the attitude and environment of the game. You enter Death Egg and immediately you're just like, oh yeah, this is happening. Except this wasn't. You see what I did there? Did you get the joke? But even the very beginning of the game, with Angel Island's first act, you're already getting that hardcore funky vibe. And they only satisfy me even more with the second act, where things start getting even more hardcore. Hardcore is a word I've used 4 times now in the past few seconds, and for a good reason. And as many of you may be aware, it seems as though Michael Jackson himself may have had a role in the soundtrack, whether he ended up contributing anything to the project or not. Needless to say, it's clear there's some Michael Jackson influence here, and there's no denying it. And for me, this is a major plus. I mean, I kinda like Michael Jackson. I mean, I don't know if I would consider him the king of pop, more like the goddess of pop.
Let's just conclude it like this.
Up to 16-bit sound chip that could sample actual sounds. 8-bit synth sound chip.
Who's kicking the butt here? I'm sorry? Unfair competition? Who's still kicking the butt? I rest my freaking case!
this thing right here. This technically isn't broken, but it's a flawed concept. Basically, the whole game teaches us that the two most important buttons are jump and move left and right. So then suddenly we're supposed to apparently jump on this thing to get it moving, then use up and then down on the D-pad to get it. What? Nobody expects this, so nobody understands how to beat this stupid obstacle at first. The moment the internet had the ability to do so, people were asking how to get past this thing, as I'm sure some people got stuck at this part and never could finish it. It got to the point that producer and co-creator Yuji Naka and game designer Takashi Izuka, I'm so sorry, I can't say Japanese names, actually apologized for it. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the biggest con of Sonic 3.
Okay, well, I did the thing, so now let's see which one has the least cons.
I think they know the answer.
Mac, we're gonna go about this the formal way.
Lol, Garrett going about something formally.
Haha, so funny. Haha.
Yeah. Obvious victor here.
I'm sure most of you are not surprised by this. In fact, I'm sure some of you might even be disappointed that my opinion is actually a popular one. But there's no denying it. After playing all 3 games back to back, Sonic 3 still takes the cake. In fact, here's what other people have to say about Sonic 3.
See, one of the best things about Sonic 3 and Knuckles is that when you're playing it, you're a little too preoccupied to be watching some stupid kid's YouTube videos.
What do you think about Sonic 3 and Knuckles? Who are you? Hey, I'm just, dude, Matt, come on, dude.
But what's brilliant is the way that she controls her voice when she's saying, Jack.
Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is how me and my caring wife of 7 years first realized we love each other.
Well, I think one of the reasons Call of Duty's always going to be a classic is because they introduced
Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
Sonic. That's a kids game.
The tragedy of that movie was Leo DiCaprio, not the Titanic sinking. I'm sorry.
I come here to escape this.
Hey. Matt!
So obviously this is not an unpopular view. Sonic 3 is widely regarded as the best Sonic game of all time, and arguably to some, like myself, one of, if not the, greatest 2D platformer ever made.
Okay, Mac, it's time to save the Obamas.
The Bahamas.
The Bahamas. Yeah! Bob! It's Brian, but sup, dudes?
But you're still a horse.
You know, I decided that being an anthropomorphic horse that can speak English is just my destiny. I was meant for this, man.
Whatever floats your airplane, Bella. Hey, why don't you come down here and we'll sip the JoJo and play the so-so?
Sounds immensely radical, brother.